So on Tuesday and Wednesday, we practiced solving one-step equations, meaning you only had to do one thing: add, subtract, multiply, or divide. Today we're going to look at equations that have two steps. When you start to get into equations that have multiple steps, there's an order of operations you need to follow when you solve it. Kind of like order of operations when you do arithmetic. It's like PEMDAS. But when you're solving equations, you don't use PEMDAS. PEMDAS is when you do arithmetic. So I'm going to show you the order of operations you use when you solve equations. So that's what I just said. We're going to use what we learned Tuesday and Wednesday to solve some problems today. So you don't need to write that down. The operations we used, I think I mentioned all of those already. Add, subtract, multiply, and divide. And those are the four operations we're going to use today. Remember, you always use the opposite one. So if you see like a +2, and you want to get rid of something that has a +2, you do a -2. So to cancel it out, we use the opposite operation. Okay, so every equation that we do today is going to have two steps. Okay. Now I think you're at the part where we're going to write some stuff down. Now you may not have to use every one of these steps in every single problem we do. Some problems may have all the steps, some problems may have less steps. But there's three letters, if you look down the left-hand side, S-A-M. So it spells SAM. So SAM is the word you want to remember when we're solving equations using two-step equations. Yeah, it's the order of the steps that we're going to follow. And the S stands for simplify. So right after the word S, you can put in simplify. And there are two steps to do under simplify. Two things that could come up. One of them will not come up today. I'll tell you what it is, so you have it, but we're not going to do it today. This is the one I don't think we're going to have to do today, and you don't have to copy example 1 yet. We're a little ways from getting to it. If you want to copy it down, you can. But the first thing you do under simplify is distributive property. So distributive properties, when you've got a number on the outside and you multiply it to the numbers inside the parentheses. If you do a problem like number 1 and it doesn't have any parentheses, then you don't have distributive property. But what number 1 does have that we need to do is to combine like terms. So we'll abbreviate that CLT, combine like terms. When you combine like terms, you are not moving something from one side to the other. All you're doing when you combine like terms is looking on one side and saying, okay, do I have anything there that has the same letter in two different spots? If I do, then I can combine them together into one term. So when we do example 1, we'll go through how to, or at least recall, how to combine like terms. So that's the first step, okay, simplify. The next step begins with an A, and that's addition or subtraction. At this step, now you are moving stuff from side to side. And we practiced that on Tuesday. So this step, you do any adding or subtracting that you need to do to try to get the letter itself. Remember, when you want to add or subtract, how do you decide which one to do? You always do the opposite operation. If I want to get rid of a +3 and move it to the other side, what operation is the opposite of +3? subtraction. So we do a -3 on both sides. And that's how you cancel out the +3. Okay, I'm not actually going to solve that problem. It's just an example. So we got the S, we've got the A. Anybody think they know what the M stands for?
Multiplication or division.
Right, multiplication or the division. Or multiply or divide. So multiplying and dividing is the very last thing you do when you're trying to solve an equation. So we got a few different cases under multiply and divide, and we went through all these cases yesterday. But the first thing you want to do is look at the number that's with the variable. It could look something like this. X divided by 3 equals 2. Could look something like 4x equals 12. That's a number with the variable. Or it could be something like 2/3 x equals 6. Each one of these cases is a little different. The first one, that's that one. If you have a whole number or a decimal attached to the letter, like a 4, that's a whole number, that's not a decimal. You divide each side by the number that's attached. So in this case, if I wanted to solve 4x equals 12, I would divide each side by 4. Divide each side by 4. If you have a fraction next to the variable, again, we wrote this yesterday, so we're really just writing it again. If you have a fraction next to the variable, you're going to multiply both sides of the equation by the reciprocal. So if you have a fraction that's 2/3, the reciprocal is 3/2. And the last case is the one I haven't put an arrow pointing to yet. That's when you have a letter divided by a number. So if you have a variable over a number, just like that, letter over a number, you multiply both sides by the number. And that one, that's that case. And that fills out the entire front of your guided notes. The rest of today is just examples. There's no more steps or anything like that. Okay. Anyone need me to scroll back up so they can copy anything that was up a little bit higher? What I'll do is let me zoom out just for a second. So that way, if you do watch the video, you could pause it right there and see everything on the screen at the same time. Yes?
What about the example for the first example up above?
Yeah, I'm going to scroll back up on my page to do example 1. For you, you're going to flip your guided notes over.
Okay.
Right, and hopefully you have enough room to write. Try to leave a couple lines of space on the guided notes. Okay, anything else that people need to copy down? Want me to go one more time? Okay, so what we'll do is we solve some problems. We'll go back to these steps and we'll go through them one by one, and we'll see if we have to do the step or we don't. Not every problem has every step in it. Okay, so let's try our first example. For you guys, you're just going to flip your guided notes over and it's going to go in the box in the upper left. For me, I'm going to scroll back up. So that's where I'll do example 1. Okay, so let's start with the first step. So you want to think, okay, I'm solving an equation. Usually the directions here would say solve. Does it say solve on your paper? No. You don't have to write it. I'll make sure that's on the test though. So the directions are to solve. And the first step under simplify is to do the distributive property. Do we have a distributive property in example 1? No, there's no parentheses, so we don't have to do it. So the next thing we go do after distributive property is combine like terms. Do you see any like terms? There's no like terms on the right side because the right side only has 1 term. But the left side has 3. Are there any like terms on the left side I can combine? Zach?
3y, 5, negative 5y.
3y and negative 5y. Exactly. The plus 7, nothing's going to happen with that yet because we can't do anything with it. But what do you get if you combine 3y and negative 5y? Yeah, just imagine combining the numbers, 3 and negative 5. That gives you negative 2. And make sure you put the letter down that was next to them originally. So that's a negative 2y. What else is still on the left-hand side? The plus 7 is still there. And on the right side? Negative 9. Okay, so that was the simplify step. We're done with that. Next thing we want to look for is adding or subtracting. Is there any adding or subtracting we can do here to start to get y by itself? Yes? What could we add or subtract?
You can subtract 7. You can subtract 7 from the right and the left.
Yep, we're going to subtract the 7 from both sides. We're not going to do anything with the negative 2 yet because that's multiplication. Okay, so we don't want to do anything with the negative 2 yet. But we can subtract 7 from both sides.
So basically that's combining terms.
The last step was combining like terms. This is adding and subtracting now. So we're subtracting 7 from both sides. Okay, so we subtract 7 there. What's on the left side now once the positive 7 and negative 7 cancel? Just negative 2y. And then negative 9 minus 7 gives me what? Negative 16. So now we are down to a one-step equation. This is the kind of problem you guys would have seen yesterday. We've done the adding and subtracting. Now our last step is the multiply or divide. In this problem, to get y by itself, are we going to multiply or are we going to divide? Yeah?
Divide.
Yep, good job. We're going to divide. And can someone tell me what we're going to divide each side by?
Don't you divide negative 2?
Divide by what?
Negative 2.
Yep, you're going to divide each side by negative 2 and negative 2. And when you divide on the left, negative 2 divided by negative 2.
No, 0.
What do you get if you divide two numbers that are the same?
Positive.
Positive, if they're the same. What positive number? If they're
Positive 1.
Positive 1.
So it would just be y.
Yes. So now the left-hand side, I'm going to put it over here, would just be a y. So we divided two numbers that are the same. We got positive 1. Now we have to do what's on the other side. Negative 16 divided by negative 2. Yeah?
8.
Yep. Positive 8. Perfect.
Wait, what? I got negative 8.
Well, when you do a negative divided by a negative, it's a positive. So the negatives cancel out.
I see.
Okay, so a few more steps in that problem. A little harder to do it all in your head. You really need to make sure you show those steps. And you can show the steps on the test. In the Chromebook, there's in Elastic, there's a like scratch pad, and you can click on that, and you can do work on the scratch pad, and I can see that work if I click on your scratch pad when I grade your test.
Is that what you want us to do?
It's up to you. You can do it if you want to do it on the scratch pad. I think you can write on the screen, right, with your Chromebook. If it's easy to do with your finger and write, you can. If it's too much for people to do and it's just going to be a lot on a test, you can always do your work on a separate piece of paper. Either way. Okay. Any questions on example 1? Let's look at example 2. This is actually a little easier than example 1. Okay, what's the first thing that we always look for if you think of that acronym I gave you?
Like terms?
And that's under the, what do we call that step? Simplify. Yeah. And there's two things under simplify. What's the first one, even if it's not in this problem? Distributive property. We don't have distributive property because we don't have parentheses, so we can skip it. Now the next one is combine like terms. Do I have any like terms on the same side of the equal sign? No. I have 4 with a y, and I have a negative 2. Those are not like terms. So there are no like terms on the same side. Like the last one. It did. Okay, so the simplify step, there's nothing to do. What's the next step after simplify?
Addition or subtraction.
Addition or subtraction. Is there any adding or subtracting we need to do to start to get the y by itself? Yep.
Yes, it's negative. No, so you combine positive 2 to negative 2, that'll make 0, and you add 2 to 14.
Yes, perfect. We're going to add the 2 on both sides. Negative 2 plus 2, as Zach just said, that gives you 0. So then what do you have left on the left side?
Yeah,
4y. Yep. So we still have the 4y. And then on the right-hand side, 14 plus 2. Yep. 16. Okay, so now we've done the A in Sam. What's the last step? We look for... What's the name of that last step? What does it begin with? Yeah, multiply or divide. Either one. In this case, is it a multiply or a divide? This is a divide. And what are we going to divide each side by?
4.
4. So divide by 4, divided by 4. 4 divided by 4 cancels because that comes out to 1, not 0. Comes out to 1. So we just have 1y. And 16 divided by 4? Yep.
4.
4. Okay. I'm not worried about checking it right now. We're just going to do the sum.
It's correct.
Yeah, that is correct. Because if you plug it back in, you get 16 minus 2, which is 14. Okay. Question on example 2. Yes.
So, like, on the test, if we don't check, we mark it wrong.
If you don't do what?
If you don't check.
If you don't check it, no. I don't think there's a specific thing on the test that has like a box to do the check. So, and Elastic doesn't really have that.
So we can just like check check it if you want.
You can check it, yeah, I would recommend you check it, and then that way you know if you get it wrong, you can fix it before I check it. And then when I check it, you get a grade. So it's always good to make sure you get the answer right if you have time to check it. Alright, let's try this one. Again, this is just a solve. Okay. What's the first step? Simplify. So first thing we look for under simplify. Not the same. We're not looking for the like terms. That's the second thing. Something we got to do before that. Distributive property. Yep. Do I have a distributive property? No, I told you pretty much none of the problems today, I don't think, have distributive property. Next one is the combined like terms. Do I have any like terms? No. Nope, there's no like terms on the same side. So now we go to the step after simplify, which is add or subtract. And now we look at our problem. Is there anything I can add or subtract on both sides to start to get x by itself?
9.
Example?
You subtract 9 on both sides.
Yep. So we're going to subtract 9 from both sides. Now, positive 9, negative 9, those cancel out because you get 0. Right? When things cancel out with addition, it's because you get 0. When they cancel out from multiplication, it's because you got 1. Okay, so positive 9 minus 9 is 0. On the left-hand side, we still have x divided by 5. And what about on the right? What's 13 minus 9? 13 minus 9, yep, that's going to give me 4. Okay, am I done?
No.
No, I still don't have x by itself. So we did adding and subtracting. Last step, multiplying and dividing. In this one, would we multiply or would we divide? Yeah. Yeah, we would multiply.
4 by 5.
Yep, you're going to multiply both sides by 5. And we have a times 5 and then a divided by 5. That cancels out because it turns into
0.
1. Right, if it turned into 0, then the x would be gone. 5 divided by 5. If you have $5 and you divide it to 5 people, everybody gets 1. So now on the left-hand side, you're left with 1x. We normally just write x. And on the right side, 4 times 5 gives me 20. Okay. Any questions on that? All right. So we already did one like this. You don't have to write that part down. It's just direction. So what we're going to do next? Yeah, that's actually just like the first one we did. So this has the simplify in it again. And again, we just okay. First thing we look for under simplify. Do we have distributive property? Nope. So we don't do it. There's no parentheses. What's the next thing we look for?
Like terms.
Combine like terms, CLT. Do we have like terms here?
Yeah.
Yes, we do. What are they?
9 and 7.
9f and negative 7. What do you get when you combine 9f and negative 7f?
2f.
2f. What else is still on the left side?
4.
The plus 4. And on the right?
8.
8. Okay. So now we've turned it into a problem kind of like the last one. You have a number with a letter, a number, and then a number on the other side. Okay. Number with a letter, number, Number on the other side. Okay. Next step after simplify. Yep.
Adding and subtracting.
Adding and subtracting. Is there any adding and subtracting we could do here? All right. Well, it would be subtract, and what would we subtract? 4. Yep. So we're going to subtract 4 from both sides. Plus 4 minus 4 cancels out, because what's 4 minus 4? 0. On the left side, we still have left side.
Oh, 2F.
2f. So that's the left side. And then on the right side, 4. Yeah, 8 minus 4 is 4. And are we done? No, we're not done till it says f equals.
Divided.
So yep, the last step is multiplying or dividing. And we are going to do dividing. That's good. And what do we divide by? 2. So divide by 2. Divide by 2. And you get 2 divided by 2 cancels, because what's 2 divided by 2? 1. Remember, if it was 0, it would wipe out the f, so it doesn't do that. 2 divided by 2 is 1f. So just f. And 4 divided by 2? 2. So we get f equals 2. Okay. Question on that? Fine. So I know normally I try to give you guys a little time to try them. It's just the that those pretest questions took, I think it took over 25 minutes, so it took a little while today.
Me, this is easy.
Yeah, it's as long as you follow the steps, it's pretty straightforward. I think example 5 is very similar. So what I'll do is, if it is similar, okay, yeah, it's pretty similar. I'm going to skip that for now. And I'm going to do example 6 because that one's a little different. And then if we have time, I'll let you guys go back and try example 5 on your own. But it's exactly like example 4 and example 1. Okay, so I'm going to put up example 6. Okay, do you guys already have the table?
Yeah.
Yes, you don't have to write that down. And I think you have the directions. So it says, use the table to find the number of miles you need to bike on Friday. So the mean comes out to 5. What's another word for mean? It's really like the, yeah?
Let's see, find the middle.
Okay, like the middle. And what's like, how do I find the middle when I give you a grade? What do I calculate? I calculate your average, yeah. So mean is really like the average. Now, if you're going to find an average, does anybody remember how you do that? Let's say for 5 things. If you want to find an average of 5 things, what do you do with them? You got 5 tests, and you want to know your average. Yep.
You add up all the numbers you have, and then divide by how many numbers you put in.
Yeah, you add everything up and then divide by how many you have. So if we want to find an average of 5 days worth of bike rides, how many things are we going to add up? Yeah. 5. Yeah, we're going to add 5 things up. So we're going to add up what we did Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. So let's start with that. How many miles did we bike on Monday? 3.5. Plus, how many did we bike on Tuesday? 5.5. How many did we bike on Wednesday? 0. So we took the day off. I need to move my table a little bit. How many miles did we bike on Thursday? We did 5 miles. And how many miles does it say we're going to bike on Friday? We're going to bike X miles. And we want to find the average of those things. So what do we have to divide them by to get the because you're adding up 5 numbers and you want to know the average. We want the average 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, divide by 5. Now, what does that give me again when I add them all up and divide by 5? Well, what am I calculating? I'm finding the average. So that gives you the average. Now, in the problem, they tell you what they want the average to be.
You will have 14 plus x.
What do they tell you they want the average to come out to? Yeah? Yeah, right here. They tell you that they want you to bike enough miles on Friday so the average comes out to 5. So on this side, we're going to replace average with what they want the average to be. They want it to be a 5. So if you were doing this for like a class, maybe you could put an average over here like 90 or something. If you want your average to be a 90, and you had 4 tests already, and you have 1 more to go, that's how you could figure out what you have to get on the last test to make sure you get an average of a 90. Okay, so let's look at the left-hand side. Is there anything I can do there?
Yeah.
Yeah, what can I do with all?
Combine that two.
You got a lot of terms I can combine. So I can add 3.5
You will have 14.
plus 5.5 plus 0, doesn't add, and then plus 5. So that's going to give me 14 when I add up everything in that box. So 14 plus x. And what's it divided by? 5. And we want the average to come out to what? 5. Yeah, I really should make that like a different number so there aren't too many 5s in this problem. Okay, now when we solve this one, it's a little bit different. Okay, I know we normally follow the same, but when you have a problem that has you find an average, the first thing you want to do is get rid of this divided by 5 in the bottom. So this is like a special case. How do you get rid of dividing by 5? And this is the only time you do this first. Yes. So if I give you a problem on the test that has something with an average in it, the first thing you're going to do is multiply by the number that's in the bottom. Multiply each side by 5. Now, we have a times 5 and a divided by 5. What happens when you do 5 and then divide by 5? 1. These cancel out. Okay, so I know that's a little different, but this is kind of a special case when you do a problem that has an average in it. The other way I could do it would be a little bit more complicated and it would involve a lot of fractions. So that's why I did it this way. Okay, so what's left on the left side now? Yep.
14 plus x equals 25.
So 14 plus x equals 25. All right. And now we're just about done. We just have one step left to solve for x, which is how many miles we have to bike on Friday. What's my last step to get rid of that 14? Yeah. So even though the first step was a little different, you really, once you do that step, you only have one step left. So you minus the 14, and what's 14 minus 14? 0. That's gone. And 25 minus 14.
11.
Yeah, it's going to give me 11. And what is that? 11 what?
Miles.
Miles. That's how many miles this person would have to bike on Friday. So their average for the week comes out to 5. How come they have to bike so many miles on Friday to get the average to be 5? Yeah?
Because I'm going to say they got 0.
Yeah, Wednesday they took the day off and they got 0. So getting that 0 brought the average way down. So now if you want to balance that out, you're going to have to get another number that's a lot higher to bring it back up. Just like a test average. If you get a 0, it brings it way down. Okay. So he's got to get him 11 miles on Friday. Okay. Any question on that? Yeah.
So in my head, I think of, so I add the 0.5 from Tuesday and add it to Monday, so that would equal 4. So that's so Tuesday is now just 5, and since 11 miles is actually the answer, I would just add 1 to Monday to equal 5, and then there's 10 divided by 2 will equal 5, and then put that to Wednesday and Friday. So that might not make any sense to you.
Okay, well, there are different ways to think about it. I know a lot of times when I used to do like running on a treadmill, I'd start doing like little tricks in my head to figure out like how fast I was going and like averaging numbers in my head. So there are definitely little like tricks you can do to try to figure things out in your head. This is how you can do it in kind of a real concrete way with that algebra. Yeah. All right, so let me put, okay. So homework is 1.2 part 2, and let me bring that up on Schoology because I want to show you something real quick. So the homework for tonight, it says lesson 3, 1.2 part 1, but because we didn't get to have a review day in class for the test, I made a review that goes over exactly the kinds of questions that are going to be on the test. It's review 1.1 and 1.2 part 1. The questions on the test are going to be exactly like the questions you see on the board. And if you scroll, you'll see there's, I think, 2 pages worth of questions? Yes. So if you do the review, I'll give you 6 extra points added to the test. Okay, if you do the review. You don't have to do this review. That's up to you. Okay, this review is extra credit, but even if you don't want to do it, I would recommend looking at it so you know what kind of questions I'm going to ask you on the test.
So our homework is?
The homework is 1.2 part 1. That's under lesson 3. The review is extra credit.
What if you get like the review questions wrong though?
Well, we'll try to go over what we can before the test to correct it. And if you want to make a reference sheet, you can use it on the test. So the best thing to have would be this review with all the correct answers on it after we go over it tomorrow. I think the review had 16 questions. And that's about how many questions are on the test. All right. So any questions on what the homework is or what the extra credit is if you want to do it?
Lesson 2, part 2, right?
1.2 part 1 is the homework for tonight, lesson 3.
I have a question.
Yes.
What's the new homework? 1.5?